Okay, so this presentation focuses on the transpiration period process of PRMS. And so there are three primary methods or options currently in PRMS to look at when transpiration is occurring throughout the time and across the basin. The first is transpiration _frost, which is a killing frost method, which looks at the point in the fall and the point in the spring at which your air temperatures cross a certain threshold, or you get no more temperatures below a certain threshold. Trans-T index is a temperature index method that looks at when you pick a month to where you say transpiration starts, then there's a certain number of degrees per day that get summed up to reach that threshold to which you say transpiration starts. And thirdly, you can also use the climate HRU capability and use an externally pre-processed values through time and by HRU. So looking at the killing frost method, PRMS will generate these parameters that you need to run this option based off of your temperatures. And so the two pieces of the control file parameters that you would want to change are the model mode, normally says daily, and you want to change that to frost. And then the transpiration tramps_module, you would make that the transp frost on that fourth line. And so the parameters that are generated when you run the model in this form with the model mode as frost, it creates a frost_date.param file, and those can be added to your existing parameter file to use this method, and that generates fall_frost, spring frost, frost temperature, and two basin parameters, which if we look in the table 1-3 of the manual, you see those three of those parameters, where the fall frost is the solar date from the first killing frost of the fall, and then this frost temperature is your threshold to where you say it's a killing frost, and the spring is which you start transpiring again. And so there are some default values of which those are set to, as far as the temperature, which is 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's all adjustable for that threshold, and the others are based off of what you set for that and running the frost mode. Now transfrost, when you actually want to run the model to generate your hydrologic response, you change the model mode back to daily and still keep the transpiration module the same, and it still uses those same parameters, and then you would get your hydrologic response that way. Now the other method, transpiration T index, so this looks at once you decide that the certain month is where you're going to start looking for transpiration, it adds up daily values of temperature. And so that one is the model mode is daily, and the transp_module is transp_T index. And the three parameters that PRMS uses there are the beginning month, the ending month, and the number of degrees that you are summing up. And so back in table 1-3 has descriptions of those three parameters. So the beginning month can be set anywhere from 1 to 12, which is January to December. Trans end can be set from 1 to 13. If you choose 13, then that means you're treating every month as it possibly could have transpiration, which may be something that you may see in warmer climates, but maybe not in the colder areas that you may run the model. And the Tmax, trans_Tmax, is the number of degrees that you're actually summing up. And so so a range here we have is like from 0 to 1,000. Default is 1. The typical value may be like 500 that folks would typically use for that value. Then the third is climate HRU, and so this would be some externally processed method of determining if transpiration is occurring on an HRU. And so in addition to having the transpiration method set to climate_HRU, you would also include the file of these pre-processed values, and so you'd have this trans_day, and you would have the path to your externally created file, and the variable that's included in that file is tramps_on, and so that's a binary 1 or 0 by day and by HRU to say whether or not transpiration can occur or not. And here's just a typical an example of an CBH or climate by HRU file. And so the top line, you designate the dimension NHRU with the number of HRUs in your model. The 4 sign separates it from the time series, and then you have your date stamp portion, and then your values. Here I have 7 example HRUs where 3 of them are transpirations on and 4 are turned off with the 1s and the 0s. And that concludes this portion of the PRMS training course, and you can refer to the manual or our help forum for any questions you may have.